Good afternoon. It was one of our nation's biggest stories, which we couldn't tell you about until now. Cardinal George Pell, the highest-ranking Catholic in Australia and among the Pope's most trusted advisors, has been found guilty of 5 counts of child sex abuse. But he wasn't found guilty today. You may remember the headline from December the 11th last year about the story we couldn't report. That was the Cardinal's conviction. But it was ordered we could not reveal any of the details. The Cardinal arrived at court this morning where that order was lifted. The details of these crimes are confronting and disturbing and are still being denied by Cardinal Pell. Charnel Vella begins our coverage from court in Melbourne this afternoon. Charnel, you've followed this story closely and have been inside the courtroom for some of the most dramatic moments of this case. Firstly, what was the Cardinal being convicted of?
Well, and there were 5 charges. He was found guilty on every single one. 4 of those charges are performing an indecent act with or in front of a child under the age of 16. That fifth charge is sexual penetration of a child under the age of 16. Let me take you through these charges. It happened in 1996. At the time, George Pell was the Archbishop of Melbourne. It is said in court he was performing a Sunday solemn mass when these 2 choir boys, aged 13 at the time, broke away from that choir group after mass. They found themselves inside a sacristy room. It's there they said they felt mischievous. They were having fun. They found the holy wine. They began taking sips out of it. And that is when George Pell entered the room. He told them that they were in trouble, they were scared, and then he undid his trousers. That is the evidence. They were terrified. They said that this only lasted a few minutes, but of course the effects went on throughout their lives. Only one of the victims gave evidence during the trial. He did that in secret behind closed doors, but his evidence was compelling. The second victim has since died. He passed away after an overdose in 2014. He never got to tell his story or see this day come. But after that trial, the jury believed that victim who was able to say what happened to him. There was really no other evidence. Every single witness who was called, all 14 of them, said that no one could have broken away from that choir, that it was impossible. But at the end of the day, the jury decided it was very possible and they found him guilty.
Charnel, of course, we couldn't report this until now because of the suppression order lifted this morning. Why was that?
Well, there was a second trial that was meant to go ahead. There was pre-trial for that trial last week, and the judge came back and threw out a whole lot of evidence. Basically, the DPP walked inside that court today and said they couldn't proceed with the little evidence they had remaining. We then, as the media, had to fight to be able to tell you of this guilty plea, of these accusations. They wanted to keep the suppression in place until after the Court of Appeal had decided on what they would do with George Pell's conviction, because he is going to fight these charges.
Charnel, what happens from now? Where does the court proceeding go tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow is the pivotal day. It's what's called a plea hearing here in Victoria. We could hear from the victim himself through a statement. He wants privacy, so it's likely if he has lodged a victim impact statement, that will be read by a lawyer. We will also hear plea submissions from the defence where they will argue what they want as a punishment for George Pell, and of course his defence will be doing their best to minimise that punishment. But tomorrow is the day where George Pell will be handcuffed. He'll walk into this court. He will not walk back out. He will go to a Melbourne jail tomorrow.
Charnel Vella in Melbourne. Thank you very much, Charnel.